Today we are digging into a really fascinating economic puzzle. We're looking at a country that, somehow, has the high birth rates you'd expect from a developing nation, but also the long lifespans of a very wealthy one. A brand new study gives us the first ever generational accounting of Israel's unique economy, and let me tell you, the findings are pretty remarkable.
But first, let's start with a question that really every single society has to answer for itself. What's the economic deal between the generations? Who foots the bill for raising and educating the kids, and who supports the elderly when they retire? It is a super delicate balancing act, and it says a lot about a country's priorities.
To figure that out, economists have this really powerful tool called National Transfer Accounts, or NTA. The best way to think about it is like a satellite view of a country's economy, but instead of tracking, say, products going across borders, it tracks how money and resources flow between different age groups throughout their entire lives.
And for the very first time, this exact framework has been applied to Israel. In a really groundbreaking paper, Alex Weinreb, Kirill Schraberman, and Avi Weiss from the Taub Center for Social Policy Studies have put together the baseline estimates for Israel's national transfer accounts. They've basically mapped out the nation's generational economy. And what they found, well, it reveals a system that works like no other high-income country on the planet.
Okay, so at the heart of all this analysis is this idea called the life cycle deficit. You can really think of it as the economic story of a life, a story that plays out in three main parts.
Part 1 is our youth. Now, in Israel, this period lasts from the day you're born all the way until about age 31. And during this whole time, we're in a deficit. We consume way more than we produce. Think about it. All the costs of our healthcare, our education, our upbringing, it's all covered by transfers from other people.
Then comes Part 2, our working years. From around age 32 to 61, we flip into a period of surplus. Our income from our jobs is finally more than what we consume. And this surplus, it's the engine that powers the whole system, paying for both the kids and the retirees.
And finally, Part 3 kicks in around age 62. As we retire, our income from work drops and we go right back into a deficit. Our consumption now gets paid for by a mix of things, public transfers like pensions, and of course, the private savings we hopefully built up during those surplus years. So you see this U-shaped pattern, right? Deficit, surplus, and back to deficit. That is the basic economic story of a human life.
So why is looking at Israel through this lens so fascinating? Well, because when you look at Israel's demographics, it is a complete and total outlier among developed nations. This is where it gets really interesting.
Get this, Israel has the high fertility rate of a middle-income country. We're talking over 3 kids per woman. But it combines that with the long life expectancy of a wealthy one, right around 83 years. This mashup creates this enormous youth population, which in turn leads to the highest dependency ratio. That's just the ratio of non-workers to workers of any high-income country in the world. It's not even close.
So this completely unique demographic profile creates a generational economy that, as the data shows, just breaks all the rules you'd expect to see when you compare to its peers in Europe, North America, or Asia.
This slide shows one of the first big differences perfectly. On the one side, you see the typical path in most wealthy countries. You finish school, you start your career. But then you look at Israel's path, and you see mandatory military service, which is often followed by a period of travel, and then university. All of this pushes the start of a typical career way into the mid to late 20s. And that leader start, it has a massive consequence. As you can see, the average Israeli spends only 29 years in that absolutely crucial economic surplus phase. Now, this is one of the shortest periods of any high-income country, where the average is much closer to 33 years. That's 4 fewer years to generate all the wealth that has to support everyone else.
The result of that shorter surplus period is a truly staggering number, 59.1%. Nearly 60% of all labor income in Israel is needed just to cover the consumption deficits of the young and the old. I mean, to put that into perspective, that's a number you'd expect to see in a middle-income country like Mexico. It is astronomically higher than the average for wealthy nations, which is down around 35%. And this enormous burden is driven almost entirely by Israel's massive youth population.
So the big question is, how on earth does this system sustain itself? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is found in private transfers, money moving within families. In most countries, the money flows from the middle-aged out to both the young and the old. But in Israel, the researchers found the opposite. Net financial support actually flows from the elderly down to the younger generations, well into people's 70s. This is what leads them to argue that grandparents are a kind of secret weapon that helps sustain Israel's incredibly high fertility rate. Okay, so let's just quickly recap the key ways Israel's generational economy is so different. First, public education spending goes on much later in life. People start working later, but they also tend to work longer, deeper into old age. The economic deficit created by all the young people is just enormous compared to other countries. And finally, private family transfers are off the charts high, with the elderly acting as major financial givers to the young, not the other way around.
So what does all this really unique model mean for Israel's economic future? I mean, how sustainable is this generational balancing act, really?
What this Taub Center paper does is it gives us a vital baseline. For the first time, policymakers in Israel have a detailed, data-driven map of the country's unique generational contract. They can see exactly how the resources are flowing between the different age groups.
But, and this is super important, this is just the beginning. The authors are really clear that this paper is just the overall national average. The crucial next step for their research is to start breaking these numbers down by Israel's very diverse subpopulations. That's going to be absolutely essential for understanding the fiscal challenges ahead as the country's demographic mix keeps changing.
And that leaves us with the final and most crucial question. Israel's model, it's a high-wire act. It's balancing a massive youth deficit on one of the shortest economic surplus periods in the entire developed world. So as its population continues to grow and, at the same time, begins to age, the fundamental question is this: can this unique generational balancing act actually be sustained for the long haul?